Hello, heroes, villains, and those who are undecided. Welcome to School Day at NTTBF, hosted by the Library Science Program at Sam Houston State University's College of Education. My name is Brandi Grant. I am a librarian in Frisco ISD at Pearson Middle School, home of the Patriots. I hope from my getup, you all know what kind of panel this is. It's my absolute pleasure to moderate this amazing panel called Where's My Supersuit? It's a bird, it's a plane, it's amazing authors. Let me introduce you all to these literary superheroes. Ibi Zoboi is the New York Times bestselling author of My Life as an Ice Cream Sandwich and young adult novels American Street and Pride. And also, she's the co-author of Punching the Air and editor of Black Enough, Stories of Being Young and Black in America. She joins the Marvel universe of storytelling with her new novel, Okoye to the People, a Black Panther novel. Hello, Evie.
Hi, thank you so much for having me, Brandi. Hello, North Texas Teen Book Festival. I'm so glad to be back virtually.
Justin A. Reynolds is the author of Early Departures and Marvel's middle grade Spider-Man graphic novel series, Miles Morales. His debut novel, Opposite of Always, was an Indies Introduced selection and a School Library Journal Best Book. It has been translated in 17 languages and is being developed for film with Paramount Players. His new middle grade novel is It's the End of the World and I'm in My Bathing Suit. Hello, Justin.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for having me, Brandi, and hello to North Texas Teen Book Fest.
And last but not least, Ronald L. Smith is the award-winning author of several middle grade novels, which include The Young Prince and Spellbound from Marvel's Black Panther. His other books include The Mesmerist, The Owls Have Come to Take Us Away, and Gloomtown. His first novel, Hoodoo, won the Coretta Scott King John Steptoe New Talent Author Award. Hello, Ron.
Hey, thanks for having me here, guys. Glad to be with you.
Before we get started, NTTBF participants join in on all the fun by following and posting to hashtag NTTBF22 on all social media platforms. All right, authors, since students are tuning in along with teachers and librarians, please give a 30-second book talk of your newest novel because, 30 seconds is pretty much all you're going to get to convince a student to read it. So let's start with Evie.
So this is my first Marvel book, Okoye to the People, and features Okoye, one of the baddest members of the Dora Milaje, who are tasked with guarding the throne. And in Okoye to the People is a few years before Okoye becomes guard to King T'Challa. She is sent on a humanitarian mission to accompany King T'Challa's father, to New York City. And Okoye in this book is in her late teens, and she's supposed to disguise herself as a supermodel, but she's really a really tough warrior princess, warrior queen, if you will, but she would prefer to be called a warrior. And this book is a fish out of water story. Okoye is new to New York City. She's new to America. And when she meets a group of teens who are in a disenfranchised neighborhood called Brownsville in Brooklyn, which is a real neighborhood in Brooklyn, she has to make the decision whether she keeps Wakanda's powers or Wakanda's might a secret when she's seeing people around the world, and particularly in this neighborhood, who really, really need her help. And these teens are facing a very sinister real estate mogul by the name of Stella Silvers, who is doing some evil things to try to get hold of the community so she can build her high-rise apartments. So basically, this book is about gentrification, is about teens trying to find a way to protect the community and the people that they love. And it's about Okoye trying to decide whether or not she's loyal to the throne of Wakanda, loyal to the throne of Wakanda, or loyal to these kids who really, really need her help.
Ooh, that sounds so good. Ron?
This is the second book in the Black Panther Young Prince trilogy. Thank you. It's called Spellbound. If you read the first book, you know that T'Challa, young T'Challa went to Chicago, the south side of Chicago, and met Zeke and Sheila, and they become fast friends. So this book, T'Challa is down south. He's back in America again. He's in Alabama. And you know the South, there's lots of interesting food, slang, weeping willow trees. So T'Challa is really enjoying this summer trip, but something is going on weird in this little town in Alabama. There's a guy named Bob who seems to be showing up everywhere T'Challa is. And if you know any deep Marvel lore, you know that Bob is an alias for somebody else. So once he meets up with Bob, some weird stuff starts going on. People start disappearing. There's some hypnosis going on. There's an ancient evil book involved, and T'Challa, Sheila, and Zeke have to get to the bottom of it. All the while in the setting of the South, where we hint at civil rights, disenfranchisement. So it's a lot of other things going on in the book, but most of all, it's another fun adventure for T'Challa and his friends. Spellbound.
All right, Justin.
It's the end of the world, and I'm in my bathing suit. Stars Eddie Gordon Holloway, who finds himself on the hottest and coolest day of the year at the same time. Hot because it's the middle of the summer, cool because it's the party of the year where the entire town gathers at the beach and has an epic day of fun in the sun. Except Eddie is not there because he is at home stuck doing the one chore he avoided all summer long, laundry. And when the power goes out mid laundry cycle, Eddie finds himself stuck without a way to get to the party. Except it turns out he's not alone in his missteps. In fact, there are 4 other kids who are also stuck at home for various reasons. And together, they band together as they realize that the power isn't just out in their own houses, but it seems to be spread out across the whole town and maybe even the whole world. It's the end of the world, and I'm in my bathing suit.
Thank you. So now we're gonna get into some questions. Evie, what would you say a major theme in Okoye for the People is?
I have the book, the ARC advanced copy right here. So the major theme for me is young people making a difference when they feel powerless. And while Wakanda has a lot of power, and so do the Dora Milaje, and even Okoye as a young Dora, she does have a lot of power, but she's placed in a situation where she feels powerless. And the young people, I have 2 teens featured here named Mars and Tree, and they are sort of like community organizers, or they kind of run their crew, and they have strong leadership abilities, but because of the community that they live in, that leadership quality is taken advantage of by a real estate mogul. And they think they are helping their community. They are really helping themselves because they're given no other option. So ultimately, this is about, what do you do when you feel powerless in the most dire situation? And what do you do when you think you have power, but things come in your way to remind you time and time again that there are certain things you can't do anything about. But I truly believe at the end, of course, this is a Marvel story and there is a happy ending, you do find that power within. So this is about power struggles, big and small.
Ronald, in your Black Panther series, you provide the backstory of when T'Challa was a young teen. What can we learn about teenage young T'Challa?
Well, I guess when I first started writing Young T'Challa, which was a real trip for me. I mean, it's a dream come true to write for Marvel, and then Black Panther. I mean, it's like, wow. So it was a little hard at first to get into his head, you know, because it's such an iconic character and superhero that I've loved all my life. And but once I started drawing other characters into the story, my own characters, Zeke and Sheila, and students and teachers, then it started to feel more like a real story to me. And I think the thing that's most important is that, what is young T'Challa like to other young kids, right? We know him as Prince T'Challa. You know, his father's the Black Panther. He's probably spoiled, right? He's privileged, he's rich. So what is it like when he comes to America and he's on the south side of Chicago or in Alabama, where people don't know who he is because he has to remain anonymous? So what is that privilege like? What is it like when he sees other people who look like him living differently? And he sees the disparities between Wakanda and urban life. So that's something I really, really wanted to get at, to make him more human, to make him more down to earth with the kids that are his own age. So I think we see a lot of sides of him. We see the superhero, but we also see the 12, 13-year-old middle school student who's trying to figure life out. So to make him relatable is what I really tried to do.
Justin, let's talk about this title. It's the end of the world, and I'm in my bathing suit. How did you land on that title?
It was actually kind of a joint effort. Me and my editor had been talking about doing a book together for a long time, and we were talking about the movies that we both grew up on, where you'd have kind of a ragtag group of kids in the neighborhood, and maybe half of them didn't like each other or they had some issues, and they kind of found family and friendship in each other by the end of the movie. And they also saw like some kind of mystery happening. And so that was kind of the idea. And so we thought, okay, what bigger stakes can there be than it's the end of the world? And that just, we're like, that's the title, that's the book. So
Ibi, I read in another interview that in your book, you wanted to highlight everyday people who do heroic work. Why was that important?
So of course, this is a Marvel story, and the Marvel universe is filled with superheroes. But what happens when a superhero meets everyday people? In what ways can you truly help everyday people that will make an impact on their day-to-day lives? So ultimately, you begin to question as you finish reading Okoye to the People, you begin to question who the real heroes are. And I truly think it's the day-to-day people, the people who come together with other people to make lasting change. I believe in heroes, but I believe in the power of collective effort when a number of people come together and do heroic deeds and do heroic actions. So this is also a story about a community of young people who have to come together. They have leadership, and of course they have Okoye to help or not help them. I don't want to give any spoilers, but ultimately it is the actions of many ordinary people who do heroic deeds that save the day.
Ronald, in your second installment of Black Panther series in Spellbound, young T'Challa, he ends up in a small town in Alabama. Why did you decide to choose that location to take him away from Wakanda again?
Well, I just really wanted to have him here in America again because there's so much to discover. And he only saw one side of it, right? He saw the south side of Chicago in book one. I will throw this out there really quickly. There is a third book as well, and the third and final book takes place in Wakanda. So that'll be cool. So in the second book, he's in Alabama because I wanted to pick a place where there's so much history, right? And my family's from the South, so I know Alabama well, the food, the cooking, everything. So, and it's an opportunity to get young readers to learn about the civil rights movement and equality and struggles without lecturing them, without banging them over the head with it, without picking up a history book, which, you know, we know their faults at points. So I wanted to put this in a historic place relative to Black people. So T'Challa could get a sense of that. He's seen Chicago South Side. What is it like in the deep south of Alabama? You know, there's still Confederate statues. There's all kinds of things going on there that you can play with. So I wanted it to be set in a place that we know is a real landmark for the struggle in civil rights. And I mean, what better place than Alabama? There's kind of a placeholder name for the town. I call it Beaumont, but it could be Selma, it could be Birmingham, it could be Montgomery, but I call it Beaumont, Alabama. So, but it'll be very familiar to people, very familiar.
Justin, the main character or one of the main protagonists in It's the End of the World and I'm in my bathing suit is Eddie. Would you consider Eddie a superhero or some unlikely hero?
yeah, I think that's kind of the point of the book, is to. I've always said that every kid, especially, deserves to have a hero that looks and feels like them, their most authentic selves, and everyone should be represented in a way that shows them being heroic. that's kind of how, once you see that imagery and once you read that and you realize that's a real thing that's happening outside of you, then I think it kind of reinforces that those things are also building inside of you. And so Eddie, who seems to be just kind of a normal kid and for all intents and purposes really is, but when it comes down to it and he has to kind of rise to the occasion, he realizes that he has some courage and some strength in his reserves that he wasn't even aware of. And not just him, but also the group of friends that he's with, they all kind of find something inside of themselves that was always there, right? But it hadn't been tested before. And so now they get a chance to show who they really are. And I think that's what, to me, being a hero really is, not necessarily having a superpower or a super ability, but having the ability to use what makes you you in a way that helps others or in a way that makes the world a little bit better than the way it was the day before. So yeah, I think Eddie's definitely a modern day hero.
Ibi, why do you think that so many readers gravitate to superhero books? What's the allure?
Well, they're larger than life, what kid doesn't dream of being larger than life in some way? Especially when you're feeling insecure about so many things, you wish that people could see you. You wish for visibility, even if that superpower is invisibility. You want the power to take control of just everything in your life that you're insecure about. And superheroes are just like bad at, am I supposed to say that? Bad beep. They're just badass, right? Because they, even with when they have their like Achilles heels or weaknesses, they seem to overcome that and they seem selfless in a very, very big way. They have power, but they use it for good. And we always root for the superhero and not the villain, even if the villain has superpowers. So in that sense, I've always liked this idea of people who have control of their environment and can, kick butt, and stand up to the bad guy. These are all things we all want when we are very young, even as adults. I wish I had some superhero qualities like cloning or flying or invisibility. So it's something that we all gravitate to, being larger than life in so many ways.
So Evie spoke about the hero. I want to talk to you, Ron, about the villain. I mean, what's a superhero story without a villain? Can you describe the villain in Spellbound?
Wow. Well, a good villain, and my writer friends know this, and some of the people watching, a good villain thinks they're the hero, right? So, the villain of your story has to be, sometimes they're just completely evil with no backstory, with nothing. They're just the bad guy, the Dark Lord, whatever. How did he get that way? Well, how did he or she get that way? Why are they like that? So I think you have to have relatable villains as well. The villains that work well, you understand what makes them tick. The villain in Spellbound it's not a spoiler. I think it's on the kind of the flap copy, but he's a very charismatic character that young T'Challa's father, T'Chaka, knows well. And he has a lot of history with King T'Chaka and the Black Panther. And I don't want to say what his name is, but he has powers that are like hypnosis, and he can really, he's human, and he doesn't necessarily have supernatural powers, but they're the powers of persuasion and hypnosis and sowing turmoil, right? So you put all that together, and you have a villain that is just as terrifying, not supernatural, as a supernatural one. So he has all kinds of tricks up his sleeves. His name is Bob. He has another name though. And you'll find out what it is. But yeah, he's a good creepy villain. He's got a malevolent grin, and he wears an interesting outfit.
Okay. Got to read that. So Justin, I am going to call you the superhero of literary genres and formats. How do you switch between all of the different formats? Like you're your realistic fiction writer, graphic novels with the Miles Morales series for Marvel, your action adventure. Do you like have a favorite genre or format?
Honestly, I don't think that I do have a favorite at this point. I think whereas I could understand people kind of looking at the way that it seems to kind of bounce, I've seen it kind of bounce back and forth between mediums. Um, Ultimately, I just kind of see it all as just like it's all storytelling. And I think there are certain mediums that allow you to do things that others don't. And so when I'm doing a graphic novel, I think, okay, what could a graphic novel do that I wouldn't be able to accomplish in a traditional novel? And then I try to key in on those things. And I think the way that my brain works, which is to say that it's all over the place all the time, I think it works well to be able to kind of inhabit a different type of creative space. And so moving from place to place actually sometimes frees me up in ways that that also help the other projects that I'm working on. So maybe I'm working on this graphic novel and I'm thinking very visually, and then that gives me a little bit of insight into another character in another project that I'm working on. I say, oh, I got it. So I think kind of bouncing back and forth between those different genres and mediums has actually kind of been a blessing. It's definitely taught me about storytelling. In comics, you have to be concise. In novels, you have a lot more room. And so I think at the end of the day, everyone is just trying to tell the best story that we can tell.
Mhm. Well, now for some reader submitted questions. These are students who submitted questions specifically for you all. First question is for Ibi. Miriam M. from Pearson Middle School wants to know, what superheroes did you like as a kid, and how did those superheroes influence your writing?
Oh man, so I'm going to age myself. And I grew up in the 80s and 90s. 80s
That's
was my
not aging
childhood.
yourself. That's
You
not
look
aging yourself.
amazing.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I don't, it was like 30 years ago.
It's still a
So
while.
80, yeah. So I loved, there was Wonder Woman was on TV. And I love Wonder Woman. Is that a Wonder Woman costume you got on, Brandi?
Just a little bit.
Yeah.
So I remember Wonder Woman
Right.
being on TV, and there was also the Bionic Woman
Yeah.
was on. Yeah, yeah. And I don't. I think 80s kids are very lucky because TV was a huge thing. I watched TV 12 hours a day. So I'm gonna say Wonder Woman first, and cartoons. There was She-Ra and Gem and the Holograms. And this is before MCU, Marvel Cinematic Universe. And I also like the guys too. I recently watched an episode of Knight Rider the other day. I had Knight Rider. Yeah, that theme song was a bop, right? And I had the Bionic Man. So I had a plethora of superheroes to choose from, whether animated or, sort of in real life. That Wonder Woman, I wish there were more Black superheroes on TV. I did not know. So I think with MCU, Black Panther was like the first that I saw with my family. And I was an adult when I experienced that. So it is a privilege to be able to write for the Black Panther series. So, because I remember just absorbing all those superhero TV shows when I was growing up.
Ron, Emily is a sixth grader at Griffin Middle School. And she asked, are there ever some moments in your life where you thought or wanted to give up on writing?
Hi, Emily. That's a great question. No, but there are times and days, which are my writer friends can agree, I'm sure will agree, that there are days when it's tough And you just have to remember, like, hey, why did I get into this? I love writing, and I'm going to push through it, and I'm going to keep going. And sometimes I look at the few books on my shelf and go, well, if I did it before, I guess I can do it again. Because sometimes every time you start a new book, it's like learning how to write all over again. Like, how did I do that? So if Emily is a writer, or she knows any writer friends, just keep going, keep pressing through, try to finish what you start. If you don't like the way it's going, just write the end and move on to the next story. But try to finish what you start, try to share your work with other young people that are writing the same kind of stuff you're writing, get feedback. So hopefully you can, turn your hobby into your job, your hobby into a real job someday. So that's what I would say. I would say no, don't give up. Sometimes you got to take a break and look at a movie, go for a walk, do whatever, but you always get back to it, because that's what we do. We like, whether this is writing or ballet or horse riding or whatever you do, just keep going.
Justin Ashir K, a 10th grader at Jasper High School, wants to know, what is the cultural relevance of superheroes today? And how do you think it's influenced by comics and novels?
First of all, Ashir K, I'm assuming that you said, I have a one question, two parts. So the first part, the cultural significance of superheroes. I think that they have a huge place in culture. And I think they always really have. We've always kind of had these stories that we told, whether it be orally or that we saw on television or in books, about people kind of rising above the fray and being able to accomplish great things, right? There's always been this mythology, especially within, I can speak within the Black community, of these larger than life figures who were imposing and strong, and they were all about their community, all about trying to save the community, keep the community intact, strengthen the community. And so I think we see that translating the same way today, in which these superheroes, they kind of give us one kind of a rallying point where everyone can kind of go and say, we want this person to win, we want this team to win. And so they kind of put us all on the same side and get us excited about what they're fighting for, which is usually some form of justice, trying to seek some form of peace, trying to salvage something, save the world. And so I think, yeah, modern superheroes, they are still accomplishing a lot of the things that we might even struggle to accomplish in real life. That's why I think the idea of kind of these superheroes getting the ball rolling, so to speak. But even in those platforms, in those shows, movies, books, there are always normal people who are required to kind of take the ball from the superhero and continue that mission, to see it to fruition on the earth, so that it can be something that can be built upon, that can be lasting and permanent. So I think superheroes and civilians kind of working together hand in hand is a tradition that will continue forever as long as stories are told. The second part was, I'm sorry, was the second part of the question?
How do they influence your writing, these superheroes?
So they influence my writing in that I think the lesson that I learned as a child in my household, and one that I still think about today, is that kind of what I said earlier, anyone can be heroic, and most acts of heroism go unnoticed. And so it's not about the praise or kind of the glamour or the flash that comes sometimes with these super abilities, but it's about just standing up for what's right, even when no one's watching. And I think my work kind of sometimes is kind of centered around those ideas that the best things in life happen because seemingly average, ordinary people are putting their time, energy on the line in order to accomplish those things, to move the needle so that the people that are coming up behind them can have a slightly better life or have a little bit of a bigger voice to speak truth. So I think acts of heroism, the majority of acts of heroism that are being accomplished are always going to be from people that look and think and talk like regular people. And I think that we need to see more of that, especially represented for children of color. We need to see more of those superheroes brought to the fore, because we know they exist.
Yes. So we're quickly approaching our time ending, but I really want to know about everyone's next writing adventure. So students, this is when we lean close because they're going to give us some insight on what's next. So if y'all could quickly do that, that would be amazing. Ibi?
Oh, joy. I'll say what's out now, which is connected to Okoye to the People, is a biographical constellation of science fiction pioneer Octavia Estelle Butler, the first Black woman to be widely published within the science fiction genre. And this is for middle schoolers only because Octavia Butler wrote her first novel at the age of 10. And the year was 1957 during the space race, the Cold War, and the civil rights movement. And I think Octavia is Octavia's body of work is the one place where we can connect space race and civil rights movement. And she places Black women in the future and on spaceships interacting with aliens. And she started doing that at the age of 10 and she never stopped. She did this for her entire life. And my next book will be out in 2023. It's YA. It's called Nigeria Joan. It's a girl contending with American history and grappling with the Black and Indigenous girls who had a huge part to play in the drafting of the US Constitution. And I can't wait to share that with readers.
All right, Ron, what do you have next?
Well, I hinted at it a little bit. It's called Uprising, and it'll be out this year as well. So Spellbound came out in, what is this, February? Yeah, February 1. And then the third book is called Uprising, and that's out in November. And that takes place in Wakanda. So after 2 books with T'Challa and friends in the States, we're going to see Wakanda, and we're going to see it through the eyes of Zeke and Sheila, T'Challa's friends. So what is that going to be like? So there's some stuff going down in Wakanda that's going to test the young T'Challa like he's never been tested before. So he's going to learn a lot. He's got to prove himself. I'm just telling you, some stuff's going down. That's all I'm going to say.
We can't wait. Justin, what about you?
So in addition to It's the End of the World, and I'm in my bathing suit, I have 2 other books out this year. One is called Shot Clock, and I did that. That was a partnership with 4-time NBA All-Star Caron Butler, who now is an assistant coach for the Miami Heat. And that's a book about kind of getting using your voice to kind of rise up out of your community and to protest when things go wrong, having the strength to do that as a child, as a young person. And then I have my second Miles Morales book out around that same time, and that's called Stranger Tides. I'm super excited about that. I think if you enjoyed the first book that we did, I feel like I'll tip my hat to Pablo. The art is wild. The things he's doing in Stranger Tides. If you like the art in our first project, you'll love this. He really pushes the boundaries, and I think the story is a natural evolution for Miles as he grows into his superpowers.
Wow. Authors, I just want to thank you so much for your time. I really wish you all well in all of your bookish adventures. Thanks to all who tuned in. I hope you had as much fun as I did. Keep in mind that there are several equally amazing Author Day panels or School Day panels to explore on the NTTBF website. Enjoy your time at NTTBF School Day. Bye, all. Bye, authors. Thank you so much.
Thank you so
everybody.
much, Brandi.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.